Hi, you've reached Miss Christina. Today we're going to read How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This is the front of the book. This is the back of the book. This is the spine. This is the title page. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived in just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one knows quite the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may be that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with his sour, grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise, noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise, noise, noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was nothing the Grinch could stand in the least. And then they do something he'd like least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the small and the tall, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing and sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years, I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? And then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy treat. With this coat and this hat, I look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, that Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he called some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up! And the sleigh started down towards the home where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All the reindeers were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinch Claus hissed, and he climbed to the top, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue. Where the little Who stockings all hung in a row, these stockings, he grinned, are the first thing to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorns, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags, and the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beef. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove. When he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove, he turned round fast and he saw a small Who. Then Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by the tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie and he thought up one quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on the tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child, then he patted her head, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log from their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On his walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire, and a speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for the mouse. Then he did the same thing to all the other Who's house, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who mouses. It was 1:15, all the Who's still in bed, all the Who's still snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsels, the trimmings and the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out that Christmas is not coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two, and then they'll cry, boo-hoo! That's the noise that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and it started to grow. But it wasn't a sound that was sad. Why, this sound was very merry. It couldn't be so, but it was. Merry very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Everyone in Whoville, the tall, the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with the Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he was puzzled 3 hours, till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from the store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys. And he brought back packed the food to feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end.